Hello friends, followers and channel members, welcome to another video here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and in today's video we are going to be looking at 5 of the most difficult airports to land at in Europe. Now there are 7 category C airports as they're called in Europe, all of which EasyJet do fly to, and aircrew have to undergo special training both in the simulator and then in the real aircraft. They have to do check rides to make sure that they are capable and well versed in all the specific procedures that are required to land safely at these airports. We're going to be having a look in this video at what makes them so difficult and hazardous. I'd then love to hear in the comments down below how you've got on landing at any of these airports. So let's get started. Number 1 on the list, of course, has to be Innsbruck, and I think many of you are well versed and familiar with the difficult approach to Innsbruck Airport. Now, it may surprise you to know as well that Innsbruck can actually take aircraft up to the size of the Boeing 767, but the surrounding terrain, the valley, all creates terrible wind turbulence, wind shears, which pilots have to be aware of. When starting the approach either from the east or from the west, once you start to head down the valley, you have to maintain a maximum of 150 knots. Get flaps 3 out and landing gear down well before you're anywhere near that runway. So at the start of the approach, you almost want to be fully configured. It's also the only airport in Europe which is the special case of having the APU on as well as you begin your approach, and this is just in the event of a problem and a go around. You need to make sure that your engines have got maximum performance because you want to get out of that valley as soon as possible, and you need that power to climb and get away safely. No mistakes want to be made when on this approach. To make matters worse, because of the terrain around it, runway 26, which is the preferred runway for use, is an offset localizer, so no autopilot for this landing. You have to go down the localizer, and at the last few feet you then can line up with the runway visually. The opposite runway, runway 8, is an RNP or RNAV approach, so again no ILS approach available to you. There is also the option of a circle to land south of the airport, which involves coming down the localizer for runway 26 and then breaking off and in a very tight circle spinning around very carefully to come back in and land on runway 08. Not for the faint-hearted, but it is good fun. So there's number 1, Innsbruck. Next on the list then, number 2 is Gibraltar. Again, many of you will be well aware of the trials and tribulations of trying to get into Gibraltar Airport successfully. Now, Gibraltar Airport is owned by the Ministry of Defence in the UK and used by the RAF. Strangely enough, there is also a main road which intersects the runway. Funnily enough, it's called Winston Churchill Avenue, and of course this road has to be closed whenever traffic is departing or landing. The Rock of Gibraltar creates very strong crosswinds depending upon the certain weather conditions, and again pilots have been caught out. You can search YouTube and there's various clips of aircraft landing and it looks unsafe. Of course it's never unsafe. If anything looks like it's going to go wrong and the pilot cannot get down safely, they will simply do a missed approach. It is a very short runway, only 1,778 meters long, and of course the Mediterranean is at both ends of the runway, so you want to make sure that when you're touching down here, don't aim for butter, make positive ground contact and get the brakes on. No ILS is available, just an RNP approach one way and a visual approach the other way. So the visual approach requires the pilot to navigate around the Rock of Gibraltar, making a right hand bank, all nicely configured, landing gear down, flaps out, and as steady as you can, getting down nice and safely. But again, with not much room to spare, you need to make that positive ground contact, get the brakes on so that you don't overshoot. EasyJet is actually the largest airline operator as of 2021, so we'll be visiting Gibraltar quite a lot in upcoming streams. 1, because it's great scenery, and 2, because it's great fun to try and land here. Number 3 on the list then is Funchal, or Madeira Airport, or to give it its official name, the Cristiano Ronaldo International Airport, named of course after the Portuguese footballer. This is the 4th busiest airport in Portugal, and its runway construction received an Outstanding Structure Award in 2004 by the International Association for Bridge and Structural Engineering. Again, due to the terrain around the airport, there is no room for an ILS. Runway 23 has an RNAV approach, but runway 05 includes a 150-degree turn to final. Now, this is the most difficult of the approaches to the island, but the most fun and certainly the most scenic. If you are going to attempt this approach, once again, make sure that you are fully configured with landing gears down nice and early before making that final turn. And some airline operators do insist that you are fully configured, with the exception of flaps full, by the time you get to the fun VOR, which is a great play on words. Always be fully configured by fun. It's also worth noting that there are wind limitations at this airport, and if the wind is blowing in a particular direction over a certain speed, then you will have to hold before you get your landing clearance, as it is out of the permitted legal limitations. The runway is now 2,781 meters long, as it was extended in the year 2000. However, the previous runway was only 1,600 meters before being extended by 200 meters, following a fatal crash of the TAP Air Portugal flight in 1977. Let me know how you get on landing at this airport down in the comments, and make sure that you've got that auto brake set to medium to make sure you get off at the last available taxiway. Otherwise, you're going to have to backtrack, and that adds time to your journey. Mykonos then, one of the Greek Isles, is my airport pick number 4. Now, with only 7 parking stands and 2 small taxiways, delays can occur at this airport quite easily. Aircraft are also bound to have to use the turn pads at the ends of each runway following landing and to depart. So this makes the runway occupancy time quite high at this airport. If you do land here, you want to be nice and swift, getting to the end of the runway, turning around, and then vacating the runway to park up, and then allow the next available aircraft to either depart or land after you. Landings take place on runway 34. There is no ILS, and it is a VOR approach only. Terrain prevents landing on the opposite runway, and the general geography of the island gives rise to sudden wind shear, which can play havoc with the aircraft on finals. You can go from a tailwind to a headwind in a short space of time, and of course pilots can sometimes struggle to get down, so go-arounds can be quite common, and the weather from Microsoft Flight Simulator works very, very well at this. Not long ago I was doing a live stream to this airport, and I had to go around because we did indeed have some wind turbulence on finals, which meant with an increased headwind we gained lift and we were far too high, so we had to go around before coming into land for a second time. Another one of the category C airports in Europe is Santorini, also one of the Greek islands. The approach here is to runway 15, and they do have an RMP approach as well as a VOR approach, very similar to Mykonos in terms of the problems that it poses with regards to the weather. So there's 2 Greek islands that you can have a go at. Finally then, and perhaps my favourite of all the category C airports in Europe, is Tivat in Montenegro. This airport has everything you could possibly want to try and challenge you in Microsoft Flight Simulator. High terrain, terrible wind shear, a 20-degree offset localizer, and a circle to land procedure as well, with no ILS. The missed approach point is also quite far out from the airport, so if you pass the missed approach point and then have to go miss, you have to do the bulk landing procedure instead, which involves overflying the runway and essentially performing a kind of takeoff procedure. The approach to both runways are visually stunning. Runway 32 is the preferred, and this has an offset localizer with a 20-degree turn to finals at the end of it. You're coming down a valley with terrain to the left, and to the right, which can obviously give rise to wind shear and turbulent conditions. If winds don't favour this runway, then runway 14 is the choice, and this requires a circling approach, and the pilots have to come in, do this visually, and fly over the Bay of Kotor when landing on runway 14. And a lot of pilots do compare this to Funchal. The difference is that you have terrain at all sides of you, so if you have to do a go around, the procedures are much more complicated. The minimums for starting your approach into this airport is, as you would expect, much higher than they are at your normal run-of-the-mill airfields. So to me, it doesn't matter which runway you're coming in on here, runway 14 or runway 32, the workload coming into Tivat is extremely high, but extremely rewarding at the same time. So there you go, my pick of the category C airports in Europe. I'd love to know how you get on landing at these airports. Please leave a comment down below and tell me what trials and tribulations you faced, and whether you made a successful landing at any of these airports listed in the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please give the video a like if you found this entertaining, and also hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss any future live streams or content that is uploaded. Thanks once again, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.